Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which is a way for me to say carpe diem, go after the things you want in life. And the thing that I wanted to do this year was to rewatch Halt and Catch Fire and actually talk about it with people this time. And here we are, we're on, and this is an appropriate episode for that. So we're on season 2, episode 4, which was called Play with Friends. It originally aired June 21st, 2015. It was directed by Kimberly Pierce and written by Dobby Waller. The description is Joe recruits Gordon to help out with a project at West Group behind Jacob's back, but Gordon has a catch. Donna's conflicted relationship with Cameron escalates when her chat rooms are threatened to be cut from Mutiny's network. We're talking about Play with Friends, and I'm here with you all, my new Halt and Catch Fire friends. And look, you're probably sick of me saying I love this episode. I mean, they're getting better and better as we go. I really do love this episode, and I'm excited to talk about it. This is one of those episodes where it feels like every detail matters. That's what I'm thinking immediately following this rewatch, and let's see how it bears out and how I talk about it. Let's do this scene by scene breakdown, shall we? So we're actually going to start. There's a lot of use of, I think it's Dutch angles in this episode. There's kind of always a lot of use of that in this show, but we're going to get a lot of these moments where the camera is sort of tilted like this, looking at a room, looking at a space, looking at a scene. And, I think in the past, a lot of times that's been used to sort of give us a feeling of being off center, of, the character's world is to some degree tilted, and, how their story is playing out, what's happening in their life is to some degree tilted. So we're going to see that a lot here. Well, we are going to see, first thing, a crooked, like a off center, off angle close up of a blender in the Clark household. Gordon is making a smoothie. Apparently he's really into making smoothies these days. And he's getting the kids ready. He's telling them it's morning. He's telling them vegetables are a great way to start your morning because of fiber. You know what fiber is all about, don't you? Haley is adorable here. Lana Kavanaugh, everybody. Haley says, I just did number 2. Can I have Frosted Flakes? Like, fiber, don't need it. We've already accomplished those goals. So when I get the cereal I really want to start my day off. Gordon says, hey, remember our talk about trying new things? Let's try new things, shall we? Joni's had a thermometer in her mouth this whole time. Gordon's going to take the thermometer out of her mouth. It's 98.7. He's like, yep, you're going to school. Go get dressed. Donna enters, and Joni comes up to her, and she couldn't get out of school with Gordon. Maybe she can with Donna. Joni's like, I don't feel well, but Daddy's making me go to school. Donna, it's this really interesting moment where we see how much evolution Donna's had to this point. When we started in season 1, Donna was the one getting the kids ready for school. She was getting everybody ready to go. Gordon's doing that now. And Donna's actually at the point where when Joni comes up to her and is sort of clinging to her and saying, I still don't feel well, Donna very gently is actually pushing her away and saying, I can't afford to get sick right now. So I don't know, it's this really interesting, like Donna's shifting in some way here, or has already shifted to get to this point at least. Gordon offers to make Donna a pot of coffee, but she's got to get to the office. She says, feel my forehead. I'm afraid I'm getting what Joni has. Gordon kisses her forehead. He says, cool as a cucumber, just like you. And he starts kissing her more. She's like, nope, got to get to work. Gordon looks disappointed. And remember, we're coming off of an episode where he created a really big problem at Mutiny. Sonaris just destroyed everything that they had built pretty much. And so he's still kind of walking on eggshells at the start of this episode, really for the whole episode. And She says, it's not that I'm late. I really am late. I'm not mad. I'm just late. And she says, well, I don't want you to be late. And so she leaves. But he does have that feeling of disappointment. I don't think Gordon feels like he's redeemed himself. Just hasn't been enough time yet. We are going to go from here to a scene with Joe. He's entering the office of a character we haven't met yet, somebody named Ellis Mortimer. Ellis Mortimer, we know that because he has a nameplate on his desk. He is somebody relatively high up at West Group Energy. Joe is going to enter Ellis's office. Ellis says, you have my ear until the day begins in earnest. What's on your mind? Joe's like, opportunity. Ellis says, I'm going to stop you right there. I cracked up. Oh boy, Joe's got to have some work cut out for him here. Ellis says, I have no job openings. Joe's like, great, not looking for one. I'm here to tell you that you're sitting on a gold mine, Ellis. Give me 6 months. I'm turning networking computer systems into an income generating department. That's what I can do for you. He says the mainframes are powered on all day, every day, but they're sitting idle on nights and weekends. And we could be leasing that mainframe space to other companies during our off hours so that we can, give access to those third-party companies who need a larger, more powerful network, but we make some money on the side. There's really no overhead here. It's pure profit. So he is both sort of catching us up and explaining in the simplest possible way for those of us who don't have a tech background what he's trying to accomplish here. And once again, the character of Joe is really important for that purpose because we have so many people in this show who have deep technical knowledge. We kind of need somebody who's going to be able to explain it in a summary for people who need to catch up and get on the same page as the people who have the tech background who are watching. So Ellis now gets back into it. He says, see, it's a security risk. We have sensitive business information on our mainframe. Joe's like, no, you don't understand how a mainframe works. Let me tell you more things you need to know, people who don't have tech knowledge. He says, we can configure privilege settings and we can lock the users into a controlled area. They won't be able to interact with our data at all, basically. They won't see our company files. The department would be just an incubator for this large scale operation. And then he's trying to do sort of the idealistic pitch here with Ellis. He says, let's turn this juggernaut into one massive forward thinking entity. And you would be on a first name basis with Jacob Wheeler. Ellis just sort of chuckles to himself. None of this is a good sign for Joe. It's not heading in the direction Joe wants it to. Joe's like, we just imagine it, trust it, and flip the switch. It's the clothes he wanted, but it's not making a dent right now for Ellis. Ellis says, well, why don't you share this idea with your future father-in-law? And Joe pauses. Oops, like he didn't know that Ellis knew about this. And Joe's smile fades. And Ellis says, yeah, I know who you are. That's why I took this meeting. Ellis goes ahead and he stands up and he says, look, I was here before her first marriage blew up, and I'll be here after she's done with you too. Now, this is a really interesting way to paint Sarah. We don't see Sarah in this episode at all. What we have seen to this point has led me to believe that Joe could be using her. Whether he is or not, who knows? How much are his feelings real for her? Who's to say? But from what we know about Joe from season 1, if one of these people is using the other one, we'd be inclined to think Joe's angling for something. But this guy, the way he phrased it, Ellis is saying, I was here before her first marriage blew up, and I'll be here after she's done with you too. Ellis seems to think that she was a pretty active participant in that, and maybe the designer of that situation. It's how it feels to me in the way he put it out there. It's not really what I've gotten from her up until this point, but it does make me think, if that's outside perception of her, ultimately, this relationship Sarah was in really hurt Jacob's standing. And that is the owner of the company Ellis works at. So it's this really interesting alternative way of thinking about Sarah. And now I have to see if I think that plays out as I continue this rewatch. Joe's going to get serious here. He thought he was on the way to a close, a slam dunk. This is an obvious thing. There's no overhead. We just make money here. And that doesn't seem to be where he landed. So now we're going to get the next step of the fallout at the Mutiny House. So we're going to see Cam in her room. She's bracing herself for the big conversation. She's going to eat some Good and Plenties. You know, I have never eaten a Good and Plenty. They don't look good to me. Anybody out there a fan of Good and Plenties? So she eats a bunch of Good and Plenties. She sighs, and then she puts the rest of the box of the candy in her pocket. She leaves the room and she's going to see Donna first. And Donna's like, you ready for this? You know, you do your thing and Kim's like, yeah, I got it. So Kim's going to walk into the main room. She's going to address the mutiny team who, look, they have been trying to recuperate from this Sonoris incident for days now. Kim's about to tell us about how long it's been. But they know, like, it has not been a good situation. They've been, you know, their company life has been flashing before all of their collective eyes. Cam opens with, you know, I wanted to thank everyone for busting their asses the last few days without sleep. Okay, last few days. So we're thinking it's been not a week, about half a week maybe. She says, we're struggling through no fault of anybody here to keep the lights on. Every penny counts. Thank you for being good sports. She's getting there. Donna starts to look like she wants to jump in, but she stays patient. She holds herself back almost. You can see it. She lets Cam keep talking. Cam's like, well, it's not game over, but we're on life support. We're operating with a third of our XTs and our subscribers keep canceling. There's no honor among gamers, I guess. We're kind of, look, we're spending more than we're making. Look, she's telling them the news, and the news isn't good. They already knew all of this. Where is this headed? This reminded me of, it was, I think, episode 103, where Gordon had to fire so many people at Cardiff Electric and was completely not qualified in any way or informed on how to do something like that. And so, you know, Gordon, we get him in that one scene with the guy where he's like, you know, when there's a farmer and there's orange groves and there's a freeze and they have to find some other way to deliver the juice, and the guy doesn't even realize that he's there to be fired because none of this has anything to do with firing this man. And Cam is a slight improvement over that, but what she's saying here, but she's still not getting to the point, which is what Donna's about to jump in and say. Donna's heard enough. She's like, we're almost out of money. What little we have, we need to cover operating costs. She starts walking up towards Cam so she can speak side by side next to Cam. She says, we can't afford to pay your salaries right now. That's what we're all sitting here for. So you start to hear some grumbles, you know, nobody wants that news. I don't know that it would be so surprising to them that they're getting that news, but this is the moment. This is when it's happening. So Cam says, all right, look, in exchange for forgoing your salaries, we're offering shares of the company. And you look, those are going to be worth a lot more in the long run. We're going to see Boz in the room now. And remember, Boz, a couple episodes ago, had declined Cam's offer to have him work there. But here he is. He's in this team meeting. And he obviously, you know, got word at some point in the last few days about how bad things are over at Mutiny. And he just shows up for the team meeting. And he's not there to be at the front of the room with Donna and Cam. He's there amongst the other workers, listening, observing. So Cam has said, you know, You'll get the shares that'll be worth more in the long run. Yo-Yo says, in success. Cam says, well, yeah, in success. Donna says, look, this is what we signed up for, everybody. It's the risk of working at a company like this, but there's also a chance for a much greater reward. I think it's a risk worth taking, but you all need to decide that for yourself. And she wants to empower them to make that choice for themselves in this moment. Everybody's looking very serious. There's a grave reality that's hitting them. Tom is the first one to stand up, and he says, I'm in. Tom is the guy who just got Cam through a very personal panic attack in the last episode. So this is going to mean a lot to Cam that he stands up and has her back in this situation. You see a little flicker of hope on Cam's face. And then Lev's going to jump in, me too. Carl says, yep. Arky says, yeah, Toja, which means I also in Russian. We're going to start to see a number of other people say yes or raise their hands. A bunch of people, like all the people who want to say yes, start by going around and saying yes. Cam, Bodhi says yes, he's in. Cam smiles with relief. A lot of the people are saying yes, that they're going to stay for shares. Yo-Yo, he's leaned back in his chair. His posture is very disengaged from all of this. And he says, I'm out. And Lev's like, come on, man, because Lev and Yo-Yo, I mean, there were two of the first programmers that we really got to know back in season 1. Cam's face falls when Yo-Yo says he's out. Yo-Yo says, look, it's been a sweet ride. And Frosty says, yeah, me too. I've got student loans. He starts to grab his jacket. They both stand up. And Cam walks over to Yo-Yo because while there are many people who have said they're staying, this is a big blow. This is a person that she probably thought would stay because let's be honest, Yo-Yo's had a crush on Cam all this time, as far as I can tell. And he's been going, look how many things he's done over time to make her happy, to go above and beyond for her. And he's never really gotten from it what he wanted to get from it. And is he going to take on this amount of risk? I think this is a perfectly acceptable boundary for Yo-Yo to set in the relationship. He's like, this is too much. Me doing full-time work for you for free. I have to draw a line somewhere. So, he's obviously not saying all this to Cam, but I like that he's doing that for himself. So, but Cam goes to him and says, can we talk about this? And Yo-Yo says, look, I'm not taking that kind of risk on online games. And Cam, she thinks about that for a moment and she says, and there's a touch of bitterness to it. There's a touch of like, okay, well, let me just sort of throw you under the bus just a little bit here. It's not all the way there, but I feel a little bit of that bitterness here. She says, have fun writing cartridges. That's what you've always wanted to do. So this just gave you an easy excuse. And Yo-Yo stands his ground and he says, or maybe I just don't think the shares are going to be worth anything. And it's a harsh reality. And he's the only one that verbalizes it. But, it's something that everybody in the room could or should be thinking. And everyone's very serious and Yo-Yo leaves. Cam looks a bit upset, I mean, and it's not just because Yo-Yo left, but because Yo-Yo left with a very clear message about like this. Donna mentioned a very abstract idea of risk. Yo-Yo put it in more specific terms. You can take shares for this, but maybe you're just volunteering. Okay, so now we're going to see next morning, Cam comes out of her bedroom. She looks exhausted, like she just woke up. And she's wearing a ratty shirt full of holes. She looks around. The Mutiny House is the most quiet we've ever seen the Mutiny House be, because it's first thing in the morning. But she goes into the kitchen because she's going to want to get some coffee. And there's Boz at the kitchen table. Boz, who doesn't work at Mutiny, but who is at the kitchen table pouring through papers, utility bills, all kinds of things. And Cam sees him and she smiles as she gets some coffee and she says, 2 days in a row, are you angling to come back to work? Boz says, work? You ain't paying anybody anything. It's more like volunteering. I had an errand to run on this side of town. I thought I'd bring you some breakfast tacos. She walks over to the tacos and he's like, and then it just so happens I noticed this file with your invoices and it just fell open. And a couple places where you could maybe cut costs just popped out at me. He says, if you're interested in hearing my suggestions. Oh, Boz, he's the Cam whisperer. Absolutely here. I mean, he doesn't sit down and say, here's how you do it. He's being very gentle with this. I was in the neighborhood. And it was just about giving you the breakfast tacos, but then it just so happens I found all of your financial information in a folder and opened it and poured over it and have been sitting here looking at it. And it just so happens. Boz, I just love this relationship. The Boz and Cam stuff in this episode is sometimes very subtle. And it's just so beautiful. I'm so invested in their dynamic here. And there's just more to come with that in this episode. Kim leans her head in because he's invited. He said, if you want to hear my suggestions, I have some. And she leans her head, just her head in. She says, yeah. So he nods, come over here. And she's going to go sit down. Meanwhile, Donna is working on rewiring something. Look, guys, I don't have a lot of tech knowledge. She's rewiring something. Okay. That's what's happening, I guess. Lev is in the same room and he says, that's it. I'm going back to games. Donna says, no, you can handle this. It's just 6 rooms. You're doing great. Lev says, it's 18. Donna says, 18? How? Lev says, well, you told me anytime there was chatter on a new subject to create a new room for those users. So Lev has been actively working on community all of this time. And his job is to take whatever's happening in the chat and build new rooms as new conversations come up. Donna can't believe it's growing this quickly. She says, well, this is incredible. We're going to pause on the screen. We're actually going to see a chat that's happening in a room called Catty Cathy's. And it's, a play on Chatty Cathy's and cat lovers. So I just wrote down the chat we're seeing in here, and the chat there are 4 different comments. One person says, has anyone on here tried using cat litter in the bottom of a bird feeder? Another person says, what does that have to do with getting rid of the pee odor? The third person says, yeah, it helps with the mold problem, but you still need to keep the seeds dry. A 4th person says, get a room, bird feeders. This is strictly for cat owners. And then they try to resume the cat conversation. So that's the conversation that's happening on screen. So Lev breaks it down for Donna. He says, look, I just finished creating a new room, and now some bird enthusiasts hijacked the Catty Cathy's, and now the Catty Cathy's are pissed off, and I'm now pissed off because I hate cats and Catty Cathy's, and I've got to deal with all these people. And so Donna's going to sit down in front of the monitor and she's going to look at the screen. And I love this shot where we're seeing I actually don't even exactly know how they got this shot. We're seeing the reflection of Donna in the computer screen. So we're seeing all the text from this community conversation, and we're seeing Donna as if she is inside it. It's so cool. It's like Donna's inside a community room. And that feels really appropriate because she has become fully integrated. Her identity is becoming integrated with her love of community. So this is such a cool angle to give us. So Donna's reflection is in the screen. She says, so wait, hold on a second. We have users coming into these rooms just to complain. Do we have people signing up for Mutiny just to use Community? just to use community. Lev says, probably, yeah. Do you need a Venn diagram of people who are cat ladies and gamers? There's not overlap there. So Donna is smiling because this is a realization for her. There's like a whole market they're tapping into that is bringing new people to their service for this other purpose. So Lev says, can we just ask Cam for another body to help us manage this? And Donna says, when we get up to 30 rooms, let me know. And that's when she'll have the hard conversation. We're going to go back to Cam and Boz, who have been sitting down and talking through Boz's ideas. And Cam is frustrated. They're in the middle of an idea. She says, look, we already sent out mailers with instructions on reinstalling the software, but people are still canceling. So obviously Boz went from having a conversation about places where they could cut costs to, how do you get your users back? And Cam's like, we're trying, they're canceling. Boz says, well, of course. Do you give your girlfriend the clap? Do you think sending out mailers is going to fix that? Cam laughs. He says, you need to get her flowers, not penicillin. Oh, Boz. Donna's coming in to get coffee at this point. She says, well, what do you suggest we do? And Boz says, well, first, the image needs rehabilitation. The mutiny's image. He says, I noticed an invoice for prepaid ad space in Byte magazine. You could use this to change the story. Donna says, yeah, but we can't afford an ad agency right now. Sure, the space is free, but what content do you put into it? And Boz says, yeah, you don't need one. You really just need 2 words in bold black lettering. It's just, we're hiring, make a statement, let folks see that there's stuff happening here. We're cooking on the front burner still. Cam's going to smile. Boz says, add a little splash of color as well. Just draw the eye. It doesn't have to break the bank. Donna says, okay, well, maybe a photo of our staff at work. Cam laughs. Okay, yeah, that'll pop. Bodhi and Wonderboy hunched over their keyboards. I don't know. And Donna says, well, maybe, or maybe it'll just remind people of Steve Jobs starting Apple in his garage. People can't seem to get enough of that old chestnut. It's true. I think that idea of this is where it all began is something that we're really enamored of and within the culture. And that's a story that I'm aware of, just the idea of that. And so I think that inspired many people to get into the industry. And she's saying, you know what, let's capitalize on that trend. Let's use that. So Boz says, look, no more cold calls. You have to go door to door to get these subscribers back. And Cam says, yeah, but we don't have the manpower to do that. Boz says, just, not everybody, just go after the whales. And Cam and Donna are just like, what? Whales? What do you they have no idea what he means. And he says, just your top dogs, the whales. The names I highlighted for you. See here on this paper, the names I highlighted for you are your top dogs. They're your biggest spenders. You get them back first and everybody else will follow. Cam says, okay, well, we could send Lev out. I guess he kind of passes for normal. Meanwhile, Boz is kind of walking a bit away from them. He goes to lean on a wall. He's kind of whistling a little bit. He's looking around. Cam's like, maybe Lev. Boz is like, maybe. Donna says, no, I need Lev for community. Boz grimaces like, oh, when will these two realize I'm in the room? Donna's like, we're up to almost 20 rooms already for community. I need Lev. Cam says, what? That's huge. Now they're just having a conversation with each other. They've gone off on a tangent. Donna's like, well, it's a little bit of good news, right? Boz clears his throat loudly, but they keep their conversation going. She's like, wait, when did that happen? John says, just this morning. And Boz clears his throat again. They finally are paying attention to him again. And he says, ladies, this is where you say, could you please do this for us, Bosworth? You're an unbelievable salesman. And I say, no, that chapter of my life is closed. And then you say, please do this favor for us. And I say, no, I cannot. And then we go back and forth a couple times. And I eventually just say yes. And Cam smiles. This whole little speech he gives, she's just like, oh, boss, thank you. And Donna looks surprised that Boz wants to be involved in this way. And I just, you know, Boz, here he is doing whatever he can do to contribute to save the day. He's like a superhero. Somehow he heard that Mutiny was now struggling, and he just came running back into the fold to be of support. So we're going to see him continue to be a hero in this episode. So we're going to now see Joe, who is in the mainframe room at West Group, and he's with a worker, and I'm just going to say it again, rewiring something. I don't know what they're doing. They're rewiring something. He's doing something engineering wise. And the worker says, okay, so what should I write on the work order? And this is a really fast scene. Joe says, what work order? And he just hands the guy cash. So he's paying him under the table for this. It's not being done in a way that would be tracked in West Group Energy's finances. It's not going to flag for Jacob or maybe anybody. The worker looks happy enough to be paid in this way, and so that's fine. Cam is now she goes to the living room of Mutiny, and the guys are all there. They're going to do one of their pitch meetings. And I kind of like the way they've set this up so far. I'm trying to think if we've ever broken this pattern, but it seems like the living room is for pitch meetings, and this serious this serious, like, we need to talk as a team meetings about something that's not idea generating seems to be happening in like one of the work areas. So I don't know if that pattern will continue that way. I think that is how it'll play out, but they've almost kind of created an energy field around these different rooms of what they're allowed to do in those spaces. So right now it's going to be a pitch meeting, and got everybody in there in this living room area piled onto the couches and other seating areas. And Cam's like, what's going on, folks? Why am I the only one pitching today? Look, whatever you want, the sky's the limit. What comes to your mind? Bodhi, he jumps in with something that kind of disrupts the energy, or just says aloud what everybody's thinking. He says, come on, guys, let's get serious. There's shares on the line here. Cam's like, oh. Wonder Boy, sweet Wonder Boy, is going to raise his hand. And Cam is holding a Nerf gun throughout this whole scene. So I enjoy, they're kind of setting up for a future scene in this episode, but she's going to be gesturing with this Nerf gun through so much of this episode, and definitely through this whole scene. So she gives him the floor, and Wonder Boy says, we could do our version of Bard's Tale, but the players try to free a princess who's actually a hobbit in disguise. Lee Pace, everyone. Let's think about that for a second. The players try to free a princess who is actually a hobbit in disguise. Okay. Is there a broader message? If that's meant on the nose as Lee Pace, I don't know. I have to do a little bit of mental gymnastics to get there, but it's a sweet idea. So Bodhi's going to crinkle his nose, and Cam's going to pause because they're referencing something. And so Cam's like, okay, I think we need to think a little bigger than that idea. Wonder Boy says, well, okay, I mean, it is, I might not be explaining it well. And he grabs world's smallest steno pad, and he goes to use it like he's written things in it, or he's gonna write things in it. Unfortunately, it's not an entire flip chart. Okay, it's a very small steno pad, but it's a sweet idea. Cam says, well, what if we did a shooter game that's totally immersive? She's holding this Nerf dart gun, and so this idea is very much in her hands right now. She says we can show the player's perspective of his surroundings. Carl says, you want to try to do this online? Cam says, well, yeah, I mean, I know we're more limited in the kind of graphics we can do, but if we pulled it off, it would be amazing. She's still gesturing with the gun the whole time. She's like, what's a good enemy? Like it could be, can't just be like tanks, like, we need something we haven't done before. Tom's going to enter. He sort of interrupts the meeting by entering late. And Cam says, yeah, so no tanks, no aliens. It needs to be something fresh. She sees Tom come in. She pauses. She's like, morning. Tom says, I'm sorry, I got held up. He looks off. He's askew. He looks tired. His shirt's all a mess. He's trying to get situated. He's got coffee in his hand. Cam says, we'll leave a little earlier. And Tom looks at her and he sits. Busted, right? We're going to learn a lot more about Tom here. And I think this is, as you learn more about Tom's situation in this episode, it kind of makes you go back and look at what you saw in the last episode, because a lot of the last episode, I'm saying, why does he seem so disillusioned already by what he's seeing at Mutiny? Is it that he thought he was going to see something that he's not getting? Did he think there was going to be a certain energy that he's not getting? And it could be that was the case, and he's got other things going on here now, and so he really has to, I think as viewers, this episode is meant to give us more compassion for how he was in the last episode, whether or not it's directly connected, what his feelings were between those two things. So Bodhi's going to say, I've got it. I've got an idea. Find and kill E.T. before he eats your Reese's Pieces. Archie shouts, no. If you've ever seen the movie E.T., this is not a game idea. This is not like, who would want to find and kill E.T.? E.T. was adorable and a sweetheart. And just no. Just hard no, Bodhi. So Carl's like, Bodhi, that's the worst. Nobody in the room likes this idea. Cam says, okay, let's stop while we're stuck and we can pick up again tomorrow. Except Bodhi, I think, really believed in that idea on some level, and he just flips his notebook and walks out. But it's the worst idea. If you've ever seen E.T., it's not a good idea. Anyway, so everybody leaves except Tom, who the second his butt hit the chair, he started to like fade out and doze off. And so everybody's left except him, and Cam sees him. She goes over to him and she's like, hey, sorry, would you be more comfortable in one of the bedrooms? This is not good, right? Your boss catching you in this moment, not great. Tom is rubbing his eyes. He's so tired. We can see he's very tired. What's going on with Tom? He says, no, I'm good. I just need to fuel up. He takes a sip of his coffee. She's like, what's going on with you? And he says, nothing. I just slept through my alarm. I guess I'm just really tired. She says, okay, look, we're all really tired. Just because you're not getting paid anymore doesn't mean you get to show up late. It hurts morale. He's like, I got it. I hear you. And he like just being chastised. He's like, I get it. It's not going to happen again. But this is, I think, an important enough scene because, again, coming off of the last episode where it's like, why is he so sort of low energy and pessimistic about what they're doing? And now we're seeing like, what is his deal? Because he has one. He's tired. He's coming to the office. He's tired. He doesn't want to lose the job. I can feel that he doesn't want to lose the job in this scene. He's not talking back to Cam here. He's just exhausted. So we're going to leave Tom. Cam's going to leave the room, and we're going to, once again, we're going to see a wider shot of the room. We're going to leave Tom on a Dutch angle. And I also like, there's a detail in the room in the set decoration that stuck out to me here. There's a no parking after dark sign. I've never seen a sign like that before. Have any of you? Like, where is that a useful sign? Usually when you see no parking, there are specific days of the week, times of day. There could be, like, I'm in a beach area and those times are listed differently depending on whether you're in high season or low season. but no parking after dark. It's kind of interesting. So Gordon, we're going to go to Gordon now, who, he's getting fit. He's getting active. He's drinking his smoothies and he's going for runs, and he's just finished a jog in the brightest red tracksuit. And he's walking it off, and he hunches over to catch his breath. He's almost home. And he looks and he sees Joe sitting on a bench just outside his house, which was an interesting thing. It's a very convenient bench, because who has a bench like that in their front yard, just on this side of their front yard? I don't even think I've noticed that before, because we've had some front yard scenes at the Clark house. Was it always there? I can't imagine you just put it there for this. I don't know. If you've noticed this before, let me know. Joe is sitting on a bench in what looks like a park bench in front of the Clark household. Gordon now sees him and he straightens up and he's going to resume running. He's going to sprint all the way up to the house, because he just, I don't know, he needs to impress Joe. Maybe that's how you impress Joe. So he's going to get up to the house. He's going to see Joe. He's going to wave to Joe. He's like, I didn't even see you there. I was just finishing my run out, doing my miles, 9 miles today. Woo. Okay. They're going to walk to the house. They're going to go into the garage. Gordon's going to grab a remote control that is meant to power on his blender, but it's not working. So he's trying to get the blender to turn on with this remote, and nothing's happening. He's like, oh, this is the last. I wanted to impress Joe with my remote control blender. And so he offers Joe a smoothie. Joe accepts, but he can't make this blender work. Joe's filling the time. He's like, so when did you start drinking smoothies? Gordon says, well, I wasn't kidding when I told you I was going to get back in shape. Joe's looking amused. She's like, 1985 is my year, man. This is it for me. He's still trying to fix the remote. It's like, I'm eating better. I'm exercising. I mean, I haven't jogged regularly since. Joe's like, since Adidas came out with that tracksuit. Oh, Joe's got jokes. Yep. I think, like, Gordon, it does feel like Gordon wants Joe to be impressed, but why? Sort of, I don't know. And Joe is just like, oh, this Gordon, nothing's quite right here. Gordon says, yeah, well, exactly. It's all paying off. The doctor told me my blood work's good. He's still trying to fix the remote. He said, I've got the body of a 25-year-old. Joe's like, very impressive. But I don't know that he's really impressed with the situation, because really Joe's there for a purpose. This is all just small talk before Joe gets to his point. So finally, Gordon has fixed the remote. He's going to turn on the blender. We're going to hear a whirring sound. And you ask yourself, did the remote really make anything easier here? Because I'm going to say it didn't. But hey, one thing that I think is really impressive is, look, I know actors are professionals, but man, it's one thing to have to remember all your dialogue. It's another thing to have to be fixated on props and doing things manually with props while you're trying to have a scene. And Scoot McNairy just made it look so simple and natural. And gosh, I found myself very impressed by that. Okay, so the blender starts going. Gordon and Joe are going to start walking into the house. Gordon says, yeah, I programmed the remote to turn on all the electrical appliances in the house. Are there different buttons for every appliance? Were there other things that turned on when the blender started working? I don't know. So Joe says, okay, so I've been doing innovative stuff at West Group. Oil's taken a big hit and the industry needs to diversify. So they're still walking through the house. Joe's finally gotten to his point. They're getting closer and closer to the blender. So the blender's getting louder. Now they're in the kitchen. So the blender is really loud and Joe has to pause what he was saying, which is annoying because that's what he was there to talk about. But the blender's then going to stop. And Joe says, okay, so it's a perfect moment to take West Group into the information age. Have you heard about time sharing? Sure, you have. West Group has a brand new IBM 3090 mainframe still in beta at headquarters. I'm starting there. Then we're moving to the 3081 in London, New York. Gordon's like, wow, that's amazing. The profit margins of that'll be huge. That makes a lot of sense. So Gordon's picking up what Joe's putting down here. Joe says, great, okay, so I'm looking for a ground floor engineer to convert the mainframes for outside dial-in access. Gordon's like, you're not trying to sell me on this, are you? I mean, they're friends enough, right? But does he want to get into some sort of a business relationship again with Joe, the Joe who lit all of their test shipment on fire for the Giant? So Gordon is looking skeptical now. Joe's postured in a way, he has already leaned back in his chair and he raises his eyebrows. Who, me? Trying to sell you on this? He says just like that, his whole voice goes up. He's like, no, we're just talking. I mean, I'm looking for someone. You're the best engineer I know. I wanted to give you the first right of refusal. Be flattered. So Gordon's like, you're not trying to sell me on this, right? Joe's like, no, I'm not, but I am. And he gets there smooth as butter. And Gordon says, well, I am flattered and I refuse. He brings a smoothie over to Joe and Joe says, I thought we were getting along though. Gordon says, we are getting along and let's not ruin that by getting back into business together. Joe says, no, it's not all that. It's just one day of work. They're still running Cardiff system software. You could do this thing with your eyes closed. Gordon's like, hang on a tick. When you invited me and Donna to dinner at your place last week, was that to butter me up for this? Joe says, no, I hadn't even had that idea yet, which is true. But now that they're reconnected and he has had this idea, let's see. So Gordon says, is Sarah even your fiance, or is that just some person you hired to make you seem normal and trustworthy? Because that's not an inappropriate level of paranoia for Gordon to have here, actually. Maybe he should be wondering that. And Joe's like, no, you're sounding crazy. Gordon says, crazy is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Joe is going to redirect back to the original conversation he was trying to have, because this is not a path that gets him anywhere. So he wants to get out of the, are you faking it? Are you manipulating me? Do you have a fake fiance? Am I crazy for getting into business with you? He just gets it back to, this area of tech is exploding. In 18 months, will be bigger than CompuServe by a power of 5. Where will you be in 18 months? And if you remember, was it in the pilot episode where Joe brings Gordon to this lunch meeting with possible clients? And it's the one where he's trying to close those guys, but he's really sort of closing Gordon instead. And maybe that was his only intention in the room. And it feels a little bit like the same approach here. It's like, do you want to just do the thing that, everybody does, or do you want to do something that stands out? That's how we closed him at that table. And now he's saying, like, where are you going to be in 18 months? Here you are. What's your purpose? What's your purpose, Gordon? That's probably the thing that gets more to the heart of where Gordon is right now. But Gordon is still in resist Joe mode. And he says, I don't know, maybe drink Mai Tais poolside on Maui off all the money I made from the Giant. How about that? He says, sorry, Joe, find somebody else. And he's going to leave Joe standing alone in the kitchen. And then we're going to go over to a Boz scene. Boz is going to knock on an unfamiliar door. We haven't seen it before. There's going to be a boy who answers. It's going to be a boy who in this is named, we don't name him in this scene, but we will see him named on an index card later. Mark Kumpel. Boz knocks on the door. Mark answers. Boz says, is your daddy home? When do you expect him? Then Mark's mom comes to the door. She says, well, that's the $1,000,000 question. Whatever you're selling, I'm not interested. She's immediately like, closed, not doing it. I'm not interested. Get out of my space. Don't do this. Don't talk to my kid. Don't talk to me. Boss says, no, I'm not selling anything. My name's John Bosworth. He's actually going to take, it's sort of a similar approach he takes to Joe from the last scene, except this ends up being far more effective. And, Boz has more of a relationship skill set here that he can bring to this conversation. Boz says, I'm not selling anything. My name is John Bosworth. I'm the head of customer satisfaction at Mutiny. The boy looks kind of interested. He perks up a bit. Boz says, I came by to apologize to your son about our network hassles this week and see what I can do to bring him back to the Mutiny family. So once again, he's like, no, I'm not here to sell anything, except I'm here to sell something. But he's got that appeal about him. The mom says, no, there's nothing that you can do. I canceled the subscription. He's been racking up hundreds of dollars on my credit card. I can't remember the last time he had a friend home from school. She says, you video game companies are no better than drug peddlers. She said no, but she said a bunch of words with her no. And she gave Boz a ton of information that he can use to keep the conversation going. So Boz says, I'm sorry. I didn't realize our services had disrupted your boy's social life. He turns to the boy, and it's interesting how all of the characters in this scene, well, Boz and Mark, it's like a perfectly choreographed scene that they are aware of as characters within the scene between when they're meant to be talking to the mom and when they're meant to be talking to each other for the benefit of the mom. It's not really about their conversation with each other. And I kind of think they both know that. So Boz says, what grade are you in, son? Mark says, 9th. Boz says, well, your mom is right. You've got to spend more time with your buddies at school. So he's saying that to Mark, but he's saying to the mom, no, you're right. You should be doing the thing that she says. Mark says, all those boys talk about is sports, which he's saying to Boz, but it's really to both. And his mom says, that's not true. What about Gavin? Boz says, well, have any of the Mutiny users become your friends? He says that to Mark, but the mom's right there to hear all this. The boy smiles. She's like, yeah, like 32. Well, that I talk to regularly. There's probably 6 or 7 that they just like to play against me, which is also fun. His mom didn't know any of this. She smiles. She's like, I don't understand how you're actually talking with all of these people. I never hear a word from you when you're playing on the computer. And the boy says to Boz, sorry, my mother's a Luddite. He apologizes for his mom in front of his mom. And then he turns to his mother and he's like, we type messages to each other. That's how we talk online. But it's all this really interesting, complex thing that's happening here. So Boz then turns to the mom and he says, ma'am, you see, you and I are too old school to understand all this, but your son and his friends, to them, Mutiny is like their church. It's where they find community. TM, but also just the idea of community in general. He says sometimes it's the only place where they can find community. And we're going to get, at this point, like a real close-up on Boz's face here as he's delivering this speech. It's the mission statement of community, basically. He says, well, you have a good day. And he starts to walk away. And we're going to see, the camera is in front of him. He's walking towards the camera. Mom and Mark are in the doorway. And the mom says, wait, what did you say your name was again? Boz freezes and he is still pointed towards the camera. Mom and Mark can't see his face. And he just gives us a little bit of a smile. Gotcha. Because, even though we don't get to see the rest of the scene, we're just going to see him answer her question. His name is John Bosworth. Very kind of James Bond kind of thing that's happening there. JB. How about that? They both have the same initials. We're not going to see the rest of this, but you can tell the moment she calls his name back, this is probably headed in a good direction. All right, so now we're going to get Cam in her office. We're going to hear a knock on the door, and it's Donna. Apparently, Cam was looking for Donna. Donna has arrived. Cam says, yeah, so I've been doing inventory, trying to figure out what games we can afford to lose to help lighten the network. Donna says, well, that's smart. Do you have any do you want suggestions? And Cam says, well, I was thinking backgammon and checkers. They're no-brainers. You know, they're lowest performers. They're not our originals. And I'm going to have to cut out community. And that's the lead she buried, right? So Donna says, wait, huh? Why? It's the only bandwidth it takes up is from people typing, and nobody types that fast where they can even touch even the slowest telephone modem. Cam says, it's not about bandwidth, it's about security. Community is our most vulnerable spot. If someone shares the wrong file, we can get infected again. I can't take that chance. Donna says, you're trying to do things online. There's always that risk. And she's like, yeah, but it's to take that risk on something so small. Just why? Donna says, hang on, we tripled in a week. A lot of our users aren't even gamers, and it requires very little manpower. She says, I have to be honest, I think this is a mistake from a business standpoint. Cam says, noted. It's Cam's giving the final word on this right now. You know, Donna was caught off guard with this conversation. Cam is cool as a cucumber, ready to deliver the information. And Donna, I'm really glad that this conversation doesn't end here, because Donna comes back and asks some very good questions of Cam later. But this conversation had to happen first. Cam has the upper hand because she knew she was going to have this conversation with Donna. Donna wasn't prepared for it. So, you know, it really, there's more that I want to say, but I'll say it at the next scene where we rehash this. But yeah, what is motivating Cam's decision here, really? Because I'm not sure it's the security issue. So Donna's going to leave the room angry. She's going to walk to her desk. It's not going to be the only time in this episode she does this. She grabs her purse and her jacket to leave. Unfortunately, in this moment, we've got Boney and Wonder Boy who are playing with their Nerf dart guns, and a stray dart from Wonder Boy's gun hits Donna as she's trying to walk out the door. And Donna, once again, she's not just your fun-loving mom, your let's keep the family together mom that we saw in season 1, right? She wasn't even that then. But now she gets hit by this dart. She grabs Bodhi's gun and she unloads an entire clip onto Wonder Boy, driving him into the ground until he's cowering in fear. And then she throws the gun onto Wonder Boy and leaves the house. I mean, this woman's got an edge now. Wonder Boy was in the wrong place at the wrong time. My goodness. So, okay, we're gonna cut to Gordon, he's at the Clark house, and he walks into the master bathroom and gets terrified, and then the camera follows him in to see why he's terrified. And because Donna's lying in the bathtub, she was supposed to be at work, but she's lying in the bathtub. There's no water in it. She's just lying. She's just sprawled out on the bathtub. Gordon's like, you scared me. What are you doing? How long have you even been in here? She says, since you and the girls got home, it's the only place they don't look for me. She says, I've had a day. That actually is the same expression that he used in the episode where he had to fire a bunch of people. So I'm glad that's the second time that's come up here. She just sounds miserable. And so Gordon says, yeah, I know the feeling. I've had weeks like that. What happened? He's being, it's a really interesting role reversal, because I think a lot of times in TV shows, we've seen the wife be supportive to the husband. And here we are, and we're seeing things flipped around. She has had a day. He's like, tell me what I can do. Donna says, Cam's cutting all of my community rooms just when they're taking off. She was so polite about it too. All business. It was unbearable. Gordon says, well, you're always saying you wish she'd be more professional. Donna says, yeah, but not against me. We're supposed to be partners. It's like, yeah, be a good business person unless you're deciding against my idea. So Gordon says, all right, how about this? Just take care of yourself. Have a self-care night. Do you get undressed, take a real bath, put water in that tub with you. I'll order takeout, whatever you want. I'll get the girls ready for bed. It is this really weird, like, oh my goodness, this is the type of scene that we'd be seeing in reverse most of the time. Donna says, I'm not hungry. She sits up and she says, remember how you felt the first time you powered on the giant and you knew it was something special? She says, I felt the same way when the first user entered my community room. It was like giving birth. Gordon says, yeah, I know. It doesn't sound crazy. You created this thing. It's your baby. It's nice that you get that. She's tearing up here. And the fact that she's tearing up here does have more resonance by the time you get to the end of this episode and you see her with the pregnancy test and you just said, this is your baby. So this is really actually foreshadowing for later in the same episode. She says, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. And Gordon says, no, you can do this. You're too lost to see it right now, but I can see it. Forget what Cameron thinks. This is a big idea and you need to see it through. He's being the supportive husband. It is just so weird to see this reversed in this way. And I like that it's making me think about this. So Donna says, what's the point of all this? Because we can't even survive long-term on a rickety homemade network. And now this triggers the idea, okay, that's what Joe was talking about. So now Gordon's lost in thought about that. He says, well, you'll figure something out. Or maybe Gordon will figure something out. Donna says, would I be a terrible mother if I just stayed in this bathtub until the girls went to bed? Gordon says, yep. And he kisses her forehead and he leaves. But as he walks away, he's obviously putting the connection together. I probably do need to talk to Joe. Should he really be talking to Joe? Probably not, but okay, here we go. So we're going to cut from here to, we're going to get a question answered, one that we've set up earlier in this episode. Cam, she's driving into the Orson's supermarket parking lot. She's driving her truck in. She gets out of the car. She's got a jacket on and the hood up. So it's hard to recognize who she is. There's hardly, it's late at night. There's hardly anybody in the parking lot, but there is a worker who's currently gathering up all of the different shopping the grocery carts. And it's Tom. And Cam walks past Tom and then she double takes. She's like, that's Tom. And she sees him and she says, hey, and she pulls back her hood so he can see her. And he says, hey, you're out late. Because, oh man, he was caught. He probably did not want her to see him working at Orson's. Says, you're out late or early, depending on your sleep schedule. Cam says, I couldn't get work done during the day with the phones ringing. I'm here to get snacks. There's this really awkward pause now because it's like, it's the same feeling that I had in the last episode where Cam caught Tom wheeling his bicycle up to the house. It's like, Tom's not this well-to-do guy. He needs to have a job to pay the bills. And how much is a night shift at a grocery store paying the bills for him? Why does he need to pay the bills? There's still a lot we don't know about his situation, but we do know that when he was the first person to stand up and say, I'm in, pay me in shares, that's fine. He did that knowing that he was going to have to take a job that actually paid him to do the full-time job that he wanted to do. And he didn't put any of that on Cam. He took all of that on himself. And he created momentum among the team. When they saw Tom stand up, a bunch of other people started standing up and saying they were going to stay. So there's a lot for Cam to process here. And, Tom didn't really want her to know. that he was having to do this. So Cam says, I didn't know you worked here. And Tom says, no, see, I'm here undercover for games. I'm doing research. He says, I've got one. Stock boy. The players have 10 minutes to stock the shelves while dodging senior citizens on the hunt for diapers. I used to work here. So he starts by playing it off. It's a joke. She knows it's a joke. He knows it's a joke, but it kind of lightens the tension a little bit. But actually, it's the best game idea that any of the programmers have suggested so far. And so I'm kind of interested by, like, it's a real thing that this could be, but it's just the thing he was saying to sort of break the tension and cover himself. So he, after he gives his game idea, he says, no, so I used to work here in high school. My manager let me pick up some shifts, just, until the shares are worth something. And Cam says, yeah, great. Well, I mean, not great. I like it. Okay, cool, but not cool. She doesn't know what to do with all of this. She's still trying to process it all. And I think the gravity of it is really hitting her because Tom needed the money, but he was the first person to have her back and stand up, even over Yo-Yo, who she expected to be the first person to stand up and have her back. So now it gets awkward again. There's a pause and Tom says, okay, so the fireball jawbreakers are at the bottom of the shelf at the end of aisle 6. And then the good and plenties are about halfway down that aisle on the other side. It's hard to miss. I see your wrappers you always leave in your wake. It's so sweet. Like, look, she eats a lot of good and plenties. Okay, like I'm sure people know about that, but the way he described it, this idea of leaving candy wrappers and candy boxes in her wake. There's like, it's like you make a ripple effect everywhere you go. She's really affected him is something that's saying he's paid attention to the details because how could she not? She creates waves everywhere. Yeah. Kim says, right, okay, right. I'll see you in a few. And she walks into the store and Tom continues collecting shopping carts and piling them up. So it's a big reveal of a scene. And I think it recontextualizes a lot of stuff and it makes you realize how serious he is about working at Mutiny. And that there's a lot going on with Tom that we didn't know about, right? So we are now going to see a scene between Gordon and Joe. They're in a parking garage. And Gordon has reapproached Joe. And this is good, right? This is like the mom saying, hey, what's your name again to Boz? It's like, once you've got that new question happening, you're probably in a better position. Gordon reapproached Joe. Joe's probably in a better position now, but Gordon is going to take control. He's going to say, look, here are my terms. I'm in charge here. I'll provide my services for free, but in exchange, Mutiny has to be your first client. And Joe takes notice. And he says, and this is a pilot program, so you're going to have to give him a discounted rate. Joe says, so what did you screw up over at Mutiny? Because he has not heard through the grapevine. The grapevine has disaffiliated with Joe. So he doesn't know about what happened with Sonaris. And Gordon says, nothing, did nothing. I'm just trying to help my wife. And Joe's like, okay, let me get this straight. So Donna asked you if Cameron's company could be my pilot program. And Gordon's like, they're desperate. Well, no. Okay, they're not desperate. The company's in great shape. Do we have a deal? Gordon has said too much. Joe gives him the most slight and imperceptible of nods that's ever happened. And Gordon gives Joe an equipment list because he's in control. Gordon is in control. He gives him an equipment list. And Joe's like, well, I mean, I already have high-speed lines installed. And, I just pretty much just need you to finish the connection and then install IBM's time-sharing option. Gordon's like, oh, okay, you've done all that. He nods. He says, all right, well, we should use Michigan Terminal Systems. It's much more reliable than IBM. And Joe says, I have to wonder, between everything that we've seen in season one and all this stuff, like IBM folks must have hated this show. I wonder, anybody here know what IBM's reaction to this show was? But okay, so Joe says, all right, so can you do it tonight? Gordon says, well, why tonight? Joe says, can you do it or can't you? Gordon says, yeah, Joe now has control again. He never didn't have control. Joe says, he hands him back the equipment list that Gordon gave to him. And he says, okay, so why don't you grab this stuff and meet me at the bar across the street at 8? Gordon says, and Joe starts to walk away. Gordon's like, what? Why don't you grab this stuff and meet me at the bar across the street at 8? But Joe's already gone. And as Joe's walking away, we're going to get the wide shot of the garage where Joe's walking away, Gordon's standing there, and we're at another Dutch angle. Because who has control here? Who's to say? Now, I want to talk about this scene a little bit because, first of all, in the last episode, which was called The Way In, Joe got the idea about using the mainframe to timeshare and to lease the equipment out to other companies. And he saw that it was, being run on a Cardiff system. And he said, this is it. This is the way in. And at the time I said, what's this the way in to? And I thought I had an answer. And I want to re-explore that now, knowing that there are people who are new to the show who are coming in now. So I'm not looking to spoil anything for you, but what was it the way in to? We saw first thing he did was approach Gordon. Was it the way back to Gordon? When Gordon made this deal, like very under the table about Mutiny being their first users, is that something that caught Joe by surprise? Because he didn't know about Sonaris. He didn't know that Gordon's been in the doghouse. So is it something that caught Joe by surprise that Gordon was able to just put that on the table? Or was that what he was angling for? Because we have seen that right after he got engaged with Sarah, first thing he did was start playing with Cam Howe, the user, in a tank battle game anonymously. So who was this the way into, or what was this the way into? Was it a way to get him a more established position at West Group Energy with Jacob? Because he hasn't told Jacob about this yet, because he wants something to present to Jacob. So I think there's like a bunch of different things on the table. But when Joe said, this is the way in last episode, I feel like he meant something really specific. So I want to throw this out to all of you, whether you've watched it before or whether you're new to it. Who do you think this is the way into, or what do you think is this the way into? I mean, I feel like it's a who. And there are options on the table for that. So what do we think that was? But if we put that part of this away, if we take that completely off of the table here, I now have to ask myself, why are these guys doing this? Cam left. She went out on her own. She set up her own company. She's doing her own thing. Why? Why does Gordon feel like he needs to fix things with Sonaris? He's going to map the network as a favor to her and then mess it up, but never even talk to her about it. Never come to her with the idea and let her decide. Like, he's just going to do it. And Donna didn't even ask Cam about it, for that matter. Now there's this whole arrangement he's making with Joe, and Joe and Gordon fully know how weird it is with Cam. They are definitely in the doghouse with her, both of them, regardless of how they are with Donna. And yet here they are making a deal to do all of this behind Cam's back. And in this case, behind Donna's back too. I mean, I really feel for Cam here, because she said, I am out. I will not have this. At the end of season 1, at the end of 109, she's like, I'm out. I will not have this. You hurt me. You betrayed me. I'm going out on my own. And she did. And she cannot shake these men. Granted, she brought Donna onto the team. And if she was completely trying to stay removed, Donna was probably not a great hire. But still, Donna is not Joe. Donna is not Gordon. Like, Donna didn't necessarily have to come with all that baggage. It could have just been Donna brought in. So I feel so protective of Cam right now. Like, leave Cameron alone. It makes me furious that they're trying to make this deal. Anyway, having said all that, okay, now we're going to see Cam on the phone in her room. She's talking with somebody. She's okay. Before I screw myself, when was the last time you got the head of CompuServe on the phone? Also, we're not CompuServe. Donna knocks. She says, "Is this a bad time?" Cam says, "No, just doing customer service." Okay. Donna says, "All right, so this is part 2 of the conversation they had before." Donna says, "Have you ever actually used Mutiny Community?" And Cam says, "Yeah, what's your question?" Donna says, "Well, that. I just wanted to make sure you used it before you decided to drop it. But you have. That's cool. What's your favorite room?" Because all the guys have one, but what's your favorite? What's the one you most like? And Cam says, "I know what Community is." Donna says, "I disagree. I respectfully disagree." Cam says, "Let's just break it down. It is simple text. There's no graphical capability or playability. Am I wrong?" Donna's like, "Oh." For Donna, this is sort of going, if we go back to, what was it, episode 2 of season 1, where it's like Joe puts out the rules for Gordon and Cam. We're trying to come up with a machine that's 2 times as fast, half the price. And Cam's like, "That's it? I want a computer with a soul. I want a machine that feels like something." Gordon's like, "No, we just need 2 times the speed, half the price. Cool." And he starts thinking like an engineer. In a way, Cam's doing that to Donna right now. She's like, "Look, technically speaking, here's what this thing is and here's what it's not." And Donna's like, "No, it's the soul of our company." So I kind of like that we're flipping this around again. Donna says, "Look, the code might not be revolutionary, but the interactions between users are a new way of communicating. People can be more authentic online, and that is addictive." This type of language should be speaking to Cam, but Cam's still resisting it. Cam says, "Okay, fine, I'll give a spin in Community." Donna and Cam face each other at this point, and I love the way I love the choices that these actors made. Carrie Bechet and Mackenzie Davis made some really cool choice, or I don't know if it was in the script, but the choices here for Cam and Donna's posture are great. They're facing each other. It's sort of a standoff. Donna is in front of her with kind of open palms upward. Cam is palms out to Donna. And it's sort of like Donna is requesting, praying, receiving, begging, and Cam's blocking. Even though she's saying, "Sure, I'll give Community a spin," she's still physically in a blocking posture. And so she says, "Don't expect me to change my mind." Donna asks a really important question. She says, "Is it because you just don't like it, or because it didn't come from you?" And it's a question worthy of being asked too, because, when we think about some of these game ideas that her team has pitched, none of them seem to be things that they're moving forward with. Their original game is Parallax, which Cam creates basically by herself. Wonder Boy pitches a version of the Bard's Tale. Lev, in a previous episode, pitches, Jiggles, the Jello game. I can't even say it without laughing. None of those ideas even get a few seconds of our time. So can anybody get a good idea across the line if it didn't come from Cam? And I guess that's the question that Donna's raising right now. It's something that Cam needs to think about. So here we're going to, as the scene ends, we're going to hear sort of a music, a prelapse of music. It's Things Can Only Get Better by Howard Jones. For those, everybody take a second. If you need to pause this video, go check out the music video for this song. It's so 80s. It's so good. Things Can Only Get Better by Howard Jones starts here. And it starts with a very light intro. And then it gets, the song, it's great. We're going to see Buzz as this song is getting bigger and fuller. Buzz is going to move another one of the top dogs, Mark. He's got a bulletin board where on one side of it, there are delinquent subscribers, and on the other side, there's closed. And he's moving them over one at a time. We see that there's already one name that's on closed, which is good news. Boz is going to take a second postcard, a second index card, and he's going to move it over to closed, the guy that he was just talking with. So everybody is cheering. He pumps his fist. Wonder Boy is bundled up in a jacket, and he says, "Can we turn the heat on now?" They've done anything that they can to save money here. Boz says, "Come on, get yourself a new wool skirt." And Bodie's going to now grab a whole box of beers, and he's carrying them into the room. He's going to open them up. He's like, "It's time to celebrate, everybody." Carl says, "Cameron got those for tonight." Carl always the responsible one. Bodie's like, "Yeah, right. We're still on the clock. Or are we?" And then they all start opening beers. They start drinking. Bodie is spraying the beer all over the place. Love's like, "You're spilling it on my shares. How am I going to feed myself?" It's like the running joke of this space now for kind of everybody but Tom, because Tom is the one person we know who actually needed to supplement this income or have income at all. Tom is watching all of this unfold from the workstation, but he's still sitting at his computer. And then we're going to see a private message pop up from the community admin from Cam Howe. "Do you want to talk privately with Cam Howe?" Community asks him. He says yes. So now we're going to see a private chat between Tom and Cam. And Cam says, "What are you working on?" He's smiling a little bit to himself. Tom says, "Actually, I'm just nodding off." We go over to Cam. She smiles from inside her office. She writes, "I'm an idiot." This is her apology. Tom smiles. He says, "We're cool. I've got new 3D stuff to show you." "Do you now, Tom?" Cam smiles. She says, "I'll come by when I'm done reconfiguring all the games that shithead scorched." Tom says, "Hey now, Gordon equals Donna's husband." Before I get to this next line, I just want to say that this scene really captures the feeling of private chatting. I don't know if a text message or an email thread feels the same as this used to feel. I'm a little bit too young perhaps to remember it being from 85, 86 here. But I do remember AOL Instant Messenger, and I remember the feeling of having a chat. I remember the feeling of having a chat with a crush. I remember they're kind of the way they're reacting, because we're seeing their words on the screen, but we're also seeing them smile at the fact that they're having this secret conversation with each other in the middle of an office environment. And it feels a little flirty, but innocent and fun. And I don't know, there's a magic there that really captures that feeling for me. But the conversation is taking a turn here. And so Cam has said something disparaging about Gordon. Tom says, Gordon equals Donna's husband. And Cam, who looks a little, I don't know, is it annoyed here at her computer now? She writes, "No, Gordon equals the guy who hung 2 kids on her, and now she's trapped." She accidentally wrote a capital D. And she has an exclamation mark. And when she sends it, the entire last thing she wrote is now italicized. It looks different than everything else, but she doesn't know what that means. She does know that it's weird. And so she pauses Tom knows instantly what it means. And the like fun flirty thing goes away right quick. And he gets a serious look on his face. And he starts looking at the guys. He starts looking around because beeping sounds, dinging sounds are happening at every workstation in the room. And he's hearing it and he's watching it. And we now go back to the message. The camera stays on this message on the screen. Tom looks like he's considering what to do. And he's going to get up and walk into Cam's office. Cam is in her room, and it's cool because somehow Mackenzie Davis got me to process two different things here. We get the feeling of her feeling, why isn't Tom responding? And then we get the feeling of her feeling, why is that message in italics? And I feel those two things are distinct moments. Tom knocks on the door. He slides about halfway into the doorway and he says, that went to everyone, that last message. And Cam says, what? Everyone. And Mackenzie Davis has such an expressive face. You point the camera at her and her face speaks volumes. She's like, what? And her eyes go wide. And Tom says, I know this isn't the best time to tell you this, but for future reference, the letter D plus the shift key plus an exclamation mark means direct to all. And Cam gasps, puts her hands up, her beautiful eyes go wide. She's got this like, oh my God, on her face. And Mackenzie Davis's face, just amazing. So this happened, and now we're going to see Donna come out of the bathroom. She's going to walk to her workstation, and everybody is already aware of what she's about to get to on her workstation. So people are looking at her, but trying not to look at her. It is awkward. She sits at her station and she sees what Cam wrote. And then she looks around, she sees everybody looking at her. It's so embarrassing. And so, she's supposed to be an authority figure. And to have the other authority figure cutting you down like this is just for everybody to see it's uncomfortable. It's humiliating. Like, how do you bounce back from that? We're going to cut from here before we see what happens with that. We're going to go to a bar and Gordon is meeting Joe there. Joe's ordered a burger. He takes a bite of his burger. Gordon comes over. He says, all right, I've got everything in my truck. He gives Joe all of the receipts. He's going to order whatever beer's on tap. Joe is going to pay him money out of his own pocket. And he says, well, so this is all I've got on me right now, but I'll give you the rest by the end of the week. Gordon's like, why are you reimbursing me with your money? What do you have a security badge for me? Like, what's going on here? Joe says, you don't need a security badge. It's after hours. Gordon's like, yeah, I would think that's exactly why I would need a security badge to get in. Gordon looks at Joe with alarm. It's all coming together for Gordon. Joe is just doe-eyed. Who, me? Gordon's like, Joe, this is coming into Cardiff Electric. Let's just reverse engineer an IBM PC in your garage. And I'm just going to go ahead and call the IBM legal team and tell them we did it. This is stinking of that, right? Joe says, look, I tried to do this by the book, but I was getting stonewalled. Gordon says, I don't think you understand the concept of coming to me in good faith, right? Joe says, if I told you I was doing this on the side, you would have made this big deal out of it. And Gordon's like, well, it is a big deal. Why didn't you take this to your future father-in-law? It's a great idea. Joe says, yeah, but he wouldn't get my vision the way that you did. I needed to have something to show him first. So he can trust me, of all things, he says here. Gordon says, what better way to earn his trust than to break into his building in the middle of the night and mess with his state-of-the-art mainframe? It's true. Joe shrugs. He's like, it's the better play. This is the way to do it. Gordon nods. He's like, okay, does Sarah know that you're doing this? Joe says, well, no, she's in Austin for the night. Gordon says, all right, cool. Let's call her tell her what we're about to do. And if she's okay with it, then I'm happy to help. Joe raises his eyebrows. Okay, we'll do that after we call Donna and tell her that she'd be leasing her new network from me. Gordon sits and points his finger. He's like, Donna and I don't hide anything from each other, except for this. This, he specifically has not told Donna yet. Joe says, okay, cool. So let's call her up. I'd love to say hi. Gordon's like, this is such a funny conversation. Gordon says, I'd love to punch you in the face right now. And Joe says, be my guest, and takes another bite of his burger. Because the thing is, yes, Gordon's been had again, but he also is highly culpable in the fact that he just negotiated all of this on behalf of Donna and Cameron, who don't know a thing about it, and Cam would definitely not want this arrangement to be happening. And Gordon doesn't have the relationship right now with Cam to be the one to tell her. So it would have to be Donna, who doesn't even know about this. Oh my goodness, these two. So, okay, we're going to go back to what's happening at Mutiny, because currently Donna and Cam are not on good terms. Donna is out back on the back porch. Cam comes out to join her. Cam says, okay, I lied. I don't know how to use community. What a interesting way to start an apology. Donna turns, she's angry. She's like, how is anybody supposed to respect me when you're disrespecting me? Did you think about that when you were messaging with Tom? Cam says, no, I was like, do you want me to go apologize to everyone? First, start with Donna. Apologize to Donna. Donna says, no, don't do anything. Cam says, I mean, haven't you ever said something shitty about someone in private that you would never say in public, that you don't mean? Any of these words would be great to follow up with, I'm sorry. But how many different things Cam says before she says that. Donna says, that's not what we're talking about. If you have a problem with Gordon, you come to me. You don't talk about me behind my back, and you never talk about my kids. She gets a little bit of a headache. Cam's like, whoa, are you okay? Do you want water? And that actually is enough to sort of reset Cam here, who needed to be reset in this conversation. Donna says, no, I think I just have Joni's flu. She sighs. Cam says, I'm really sorry. Those are the first words she should have said. Like, all this other stuff she said, that's secondary. I'm sorry is where you begin. Donna says, you know the feeling of freedom you have when you're sending private messages with Tom? The feeling that you had a place to go where you could say things you wouldn't say in person? That is the value of community. You now have experienced community. I keep doing this, community. It's just asking to be community. It's so true. It's why that scene between Cam and Tom sold me both on, it gave me that feeling of nostalgia for instant messaging or chat rooms. And it like brought me closer to both Tom and Cam. And Donna's like, hey, everybody, that's why community is so powerful. So Tom is going to come out looking for them. He says, we're doing the group photo for the Bite ad. I'm doing a take on class photos from high school. Without you two, it looks like the Abstinence Club of 1985. It's hysterical. He laughs at his own joke, but then he realizes the incredibly awkward moment he just interrupted. And he just like, and he freezes and he goes back inside the house. So we're going to stay on those two still outside the house on a couple of wine shots. Donna's going to go back inside. It's still pretty icy between them. So we're going to go inside, and this scene delights me so much. Tom Rendon in this, oh my gosh, I love Tom in this scene. Tom is trying to wrangle all the guys to take this photo, and just watch this scene again and watch Tom slowly lose it. It's so great. It's a bunch of put down the beer, get in line. Wonder Boy, you're over here. He starts moving people, physically handling them. Stand there in a line. Okay, let me look at this. Okay, where's Bodie? Where's Bodie now? He's in the bathroom. He's in the back. Okay, somebody go get him. He says, I feel like I'm running a nursery here. He says, okay, tighten up, guys. Put down the beer. He grabs beer from people. He says, no. Okay, now Cameron and Donna come in, and they stand on opposite ends of the line from each other, as far apart as they possibly can. And so he's like, no, Cam, you're going to stand in center. Donna, you're going to stand in the center. Okay, that's great. On 3, everybody, big smiles. Nobody's smiling. Half of the people are really drunk. It's not a good photo, we think. He takes the photo. He's like, okay, Donna, Cam, that's perfect. Except, do you mind lifting the corners of your mouths a lot? Okay, on 3. Wait, hold on. Lev, you're blocking Wonder Boy. He's just like, the amount of just like direction he's having to give to people here. And I love, it must have been fun to do this, because like everybody just has to be complete like mayhem right now. And Lev says very quietly, I can't hear without my glasses. And Tom's like, you can't hear without your glasses. Okay. And so he's like physically putting people into position, and then the guys kind of hit into each other, and they spill beer all over Lev, who can't hear without his glasses. And Tom blows a gasket. He's like, everybody just stop. Can we just get together for just like 1 minute? Good, great, big smiles. Jesus. 1, 2, 3, and Bodie comes running in from the side of the frame in a tank and tidy whities and no pants. And he slides into frame, and he's like, woo! And everybody just starts laughing. Donna and Cam are finally laughing. The ice is broken. And he's like, did it look good? How'd it go? And Tom is just like, this was a complete disaster. Somebody hands Tom a beer, because Tom needs beer after all of this. And picture taken. I just enjoy that scene so much. It's kind of not like any other scene. It's such coordinated chaos, you know? So, okay, Cam, we're going to get to like a little bit later in the party, but not much later. Cam is on the couch. She's looking over at Donna's workstation, where Donna is standing. Donna, people are playing Nerf guns around them. Donna's just going to leave. She doesn't want to stay there that night. So the ice is broken, but not all the way. And Cam is going to say to Carl, she's sort of processing everything Donna has said to her. Cam finds Carl, who's wearing a full-on helmet to have a Nerf dart battle. And she says, Carl, did you take down Community yet? He says, no, but I'll do it before I leave tonight. I'm pretty sober. So she's like, no, just leave it up a few more days. He's like, great, because I'm actually not sober at all. And he's going to run away because he's in the middle of playing a game. Tom walks in, grabs her from the couch. Doesn't grab her. He hands her a gun, a toy gun, and a bandana for the red team. And he says, 15 seconds, red team. You have 15 seconds before I shoot you. So they're on opposing teams. Now we're going to get a whole sequence. And this is a sequence, by the way, and I am not going to spoil my future interviews, because those are surprises and I want you all to enjoy that. But I've had a conversation about this upcoming scene with a number of different people. You can guess who. So there's a whole sequence here of this like first person shooter game that Cam's playing, but actually playing this game inside the Mutiny House with the rest of her team. The song Don't Want to Lose starts to play. She cocks her gun. She has her bandana on. She shoots someone. We're going to see different types of shots here. We're going to see some extreme close-up shots of her face, which almost has like a fisheye lens look, but it's not that. We've got some GoPro shots from a GoPro that's strapped to Mackenzie Davis's head. We've got some over the shoulder shots. We've got some stuff kind of looking back at her. So there's this whole interesting collection of camera angles that we get for this sequence as she shoots different people. She shoots Wonder Boy. She shoots Tugboat wearing his sombrero. She's going to take Tugboat's gun. So she's now holding two guns. She's going to see Lev, but she doesn't shoot him because they're on the same team. Then she and Lev are going to start to move through the house, talking tactically with each other. They clear the hallway. Lev gets shot by somebody and he slides down the wall. She's out of ammo. So Carl starts to come up on her because he's on the blue team. But somebody shoots Carl. It's Bodhi. And so she smiles. Great, solve that problem. She grabs somebody else's gun. Bodhi's going to run and block her. Cam's going to run into the closet here. Not totally sure why. What does she think she's gonna like? Is that a safe space? Is that why? Tom's already in the closet, and they're going to draw their guns on each other and they're going to face off, but neither of them shoot. They both laugh. And Cam, now that we're going to continue the flirty conversation they were having before, she says, "You want to shoot me so bad." Tom says, "Why? Because you stopped paying us, but you're still riding all of our asses." Yeah. Cam says, "Yeah." Tom says, "And because you're imperious and you're stubborn and you never ever." Cam says, "I get it. I'm a horrible boss." Tom says, "Well, actually, no, I like all those things about you." And they pause. Oh, young love. This scene, because I just had to deep dive watching this scene, it almost plays like a love scene. It's not a love scene, but the pacing of it and sort of like it gets faster and faster paced, and they're getting more breathless as they go through, and they're getting much more in sync with each other as they go through. And by the end of the scene, I felt like I had watched an intimate love scene, which is cool because they're talking about the thing they love. But I feel like I'm supposed to be feeling connected to their pairing as characters. So they pause here where Tom has said, "Actually, I like all that stuff about you." Tom says, "Okay, so why haven't you shot me?" Cam says, "I don't know." She smiles. She says, "I sure as hell want to, but I also kind of want you in the game." Tom's eyebrows raise. "Yeah?" Cam gets an idea. And she moves his gun to the side. She lowers hers. She's like, "That's it." Tom says, "What's it?" Cam says, "This. We create this game online. We can't compete with box games, right?" Tom says, "Yeah." His brow's a little furrowed. He's not on the same page as her just yet, but he's listening. She says, "What we have going for us is that we're networked. So instead of shooting at a tank or a robot," he's still thinking. She says, "What if you're shooting at another user on our network? Because human players are not predictable like computer generated enemies." She's getting really excited now. She's talking faster and faster. "How cool would it be if you're looking right at them, eye to eye?" And now Tom's getting it and he's getting excited. He's like, "If your friend is also your enemy." She's like, "Yeah, because who doesn't want to shoot their friends sometimes?" And Tom says, so how would we get the graphics over the network? We'd build half of it on the C64 and the other half on our network. And the C64 can manage the scenery graphics and the player movement. And we can manage the user's location, whether they can see each other, the score, all that stuff. And he's talking more quickly. And so they're both kind of like breathless. And then Kim's like, "Oh, we'd have to build a protocol between the user's computer and ours so we can control the game graphics." Tom's like, "Well, of course, as long as there's short encoded instructions." And Cam's like, "Yeah, we can keep the game speed up." And how many things do I want to say that I don't want to say right now? Like, they've been speeding up. They're reaching this like pinnacle of the conversation. And then Bodhi opens the door and interrupts them, holding two guns, and shoots each of them. Cam's on his team. And Cam's like, and they both shout. Cam's like, I'm on your team. And Tom says, excuse me, we're trying to work here. And he grabs the door and he closes it so that they're both alone again. And they both laugh. And, you know, the other thing I like about this scene is that it's playing, why ever these two are in this closet, how this happened, I don't know. Why Cam went to the closet is very unclear to me. But it does play on this idea of like, what it was, 5 minutes in heaven or 7 minutes in heaven or whatever. And like, you're in a closet and you're supposed to make out for, you know, like, but they're not. Like, they're having this scene that for like middle schoolers would be your chance to get intimate with a crush or with somebody. And they are, but not in a sexual way. I don't know. I think it's just a really cool way to show their connection. Like, we saw it with them in a chat room, and now we're seeing it with them in front of each other, but still like very hands off. And it's all well and good until the phone rings, and they're inside the closet. So we hear the muffled sound of a phone ringing, and Tom says, and we hear somebody who's answered it say, "Where's Rendon? Somebody tell him his date's on the phone." And both Cam and Tom hear that, and it's awkward now. And it's that whoever it was that answered the phone says, "Tom, lady's on the phone." And Tom just gives a space. He's like, "I've got to go." And Cam's like, "Have fun." But it's awkward because there was this energy between them, and I think they both know it. He's going to hold the door open for her as he holds it out for her to leave, and she has to walk by him, and she says, "Such a gentleman." But you're just sort of inclined to think like, oh, that dog. Because this scene felt like they just like had this intimate love scene, and he's supposed to go on this date. He's actually done nothing wrong here, but this scene feels way more intimate than that. So it's just, it's like, what a scoundrel. No, they talked about a game and they clearly have an energy. Like, but he has a date. Okay. What's he done wrong, folks? So it's interesting, like how invested I became in this. All right, we're going to go back to Joe and Gordon. Gordon is working on the mainframe. Joe is at a computer, and he's realizing that it's getting late. People are going to be at work in a couple hours. He's like, "How much longer, Gordon?" And Gordon says, "Yeah, you sound like my girl's on a road trip." Joe says, "You're slower than you used to be." Gordon says, "Well, what, do you want me to slap this thing together like the Giant Pro? I'm almost done slotting. Then I'll upload the hosting and the time sharing options." Then Joe hears this from Gordon, and this is not the first time Gordon has made a comment like this about the Giant Pro to Joe. Remember when they were collecting their checks from Cardiff in the waiting room, Gordon also said something that felt really like, the Giant Pro just wasn't inspired. And Joe doesn't let this one slide, and he sort of squints, and he's like, "Hang on a minute, that's not on you. The Giant Pro, that no one machine can be everything to every customer. We're all just guessing in the dark." And Gordon says, "Well, the truth is I have no idea what consumers want, and I'm sick and tired of trying to figure it out. I wish people would just tell me exactly what they want, and then I would go and build it." Joe says, "Like a tailor making a custom suit." That feels like a really Joe way to interpret that. Gordon says, "Exactly, because I can build anything." So Gordon's, this is an interesting thought. Joe says, "All right, well, let me grab you a fresh Coke to finish up the job." Joe leaves the room, and Gordon's going to get lightheaded, and he takes a really hard fall. He crashes to the floor, basically hits his head on the floor. And we're going to see him sprawled out from overhead. Just Gordon, just sort of like roadkill, just lying on this sterile white floor. And Gordon wakes up. Joe comes in after Gordon has sort of collected himself and gotten back up again. She was like, what happened? Gordon says, I fell. I must have tripped. She was like, on what? Gordon says, I caught my foot on the edge of the cabinet here. Joe looks alarmed. Like, that's not an acceptable answer. Gordon's like, I'm fine. Let's just keep going. We're almost done. Joe says, Gordon, you don't look so good, though. Gordon says, what, are you my mother? He takes the Coke from Joe and he walks back towards the mainframe, and Joe looks worried. And Joe is the proxy for me in this scene because I'm worried. That was a really hard fall, what Gordon took. And he's had a nosebleed. And like, I don't know what's happening with Gordon here. And the fact that Joe looks so worried and isn't believing any of the stuff from Gordon gives me permission to feel worried too. Okay, so we're going to go back to the Mutiny House. It's morning, first thing in the morning. Boz has moved the last index card from delinquent to closed. Yay. This is a moment that people probably should have been around to celebrate, but we hear only one person clap, and it's Cam, because Cam is awake. And she's like, well, you're here early. Boz says, this one fellow was never at home. The only way to catch him was in his car pulling out on his way to work. And he chuckles. He got every single one of those people back. Boz, everybody. Boz. So Cam is going to get some coffee for him to acknowledge him. And she says, all right, look, I'm not going to ask you to work here again. Okay. I'm telling you, you start tomorrow. This is your office. It has an open door policy because it's a kitchen. The first task is I need to help you run. I need you to help me run this company better. Boz says, yes, ma'am. Cam says, no, I mean it. I want to get better at this. Boz says, you know, when I was 23, my job at Cardiff was to do one thing, to put the ham radio kits in the box for shipment. That's it. I wasn't even responsible for labeling them. I just boxed them, punched out, and drank beer. They laugh. You'll get there. I mean, he's basically saying, when I was exactly your age, I was not leading a company. And here you are. Like, he's saying, you're on an expedited timeline for where I am. You know, if you think I'm doing so well, imagine what you can do. So Boz says, you know, you'll get there. Cam says, when? And, you know, it can't be easy when you're seen as a leader of a company so early on, and you don't have time to learn without scrutiny. You don't have a chance to learn on the job without the company resting on your shoulders and your decisions. So she's got a lot of pressure. And, you know, the timeline Boz was on isn't going to work for the situation she's in. So Tom is going to enter this scene now, and he says, hey, I got the film developed. Hey, remember developing film? Like when you had a roll of film, you put it in your camera, and then you had no idea if any of the pictures you took came out like anything. It came out even halfway usable until you sent them off to somebody to develop the film. Like, my God, this takes me back as well. So Tom says, I got the film developed. I don't know if there's anything usable. He gives the whole pack of photos to Cam. She leans over the counter. He leans over the counter and then decides against it. He stands up because he would have been very close to her face. And that's too awkward right now. So he leans and then he stands up and lets her look at the photos. But he's watching intently as she flips through the photos. And we're going to see a couple photos. Like the first one, we're going to see a bunch of the guys talking with each other. We're going to see a photo of Arky. Is he smelling an entire coffee pot? I've never really frozen on these photos before, but that was a funny one. And so she keeps flipping through them. Tom is looking at her. And then we see Boz looking at Tom. In a very fatherly way, he's assessing Tom. And it's so subtle. But Boz is like, is this guy? He is. Is he good enough for? So he goes over to Tom and he says, we've howdied, but we ain't shook. And he says, John Bosworth. And Tom says, Tom Rendon. And they have met. And that whole thing is Tom doesn't even know he's being sized up like that, I don't think, but he's being sized up. And so all of this is interrupted. Cam laughs at one of the photos. And then we see that it's this team photo where Bodhi had slid into the front. It's an iconic photo from the show. It's an iconic still. And Cam and Tom both laugh. Cam is laughing because she is laughing. Tom is laughing because I think he's so delighted that Cam's laughing. Boz looks at the photo and he says, there's your ad right there. Tom looks at Cam because he's very invested in what she thinks. Cam says, yeah, play with friends. That's the tag. Boz chuckles. They've got it. They've got their ad. So we are now going to go from here to a scene behind the house where Tom and Cam are cleaning up the backyard. These guys just drank all kinds of beer outside for however long into the night. And they're just beer cans everywhere. And so they're throwing the cans into a hot tub. Is that what I'm looking at? A not full hot tub? The only thing in the hot tub is the mannequin, Annabelle, who I don't know if they actually ever name that mannequin in the show, but it's a thing I think on set. And so they just keep throwing cans into this hot tub, not into like a trash. Am I looking at this right? Anyway, so he's just playing around. He's shooting hoops, getting the can into the hot tub. And Cam says, well, you're in a good mood. Your date must have gone well. And Tom says, actually, no, terrible. It's terrible. I had to cut it short. Cam says, aw, she wouldn't put out. Tom says, funny, so funny. But this gave them permission, like it gave Cam permission to be like, oh, it didn't go well. And he's revealed this, and it allows them to start working their way closer to each other. So as they're throwing cans away, they're making their way closer and closer and closer. And Tom says, no, I couldn't stop thinking about the game. And Cam says, I know, me too. And she's breathless. And remember that not only are they creating this game idea together, which Cam initially spoke the beginning of the idea, but then they were bouncing off of each other, creating it together. She normally with Parallax would go into her office, create a whole chapter, bring it out to the team and have them check it. Tom is becoming an actual partner in developing this game idea with her, which he has not done before. He's not done an original idea like this. He's stolen work from Mutiny, but he hasn't done that. She hasn't worked with a partner, and Donna called her out earlier in the episode for doing that. But there's also a partnership that's developing between Tom and Cam on what would appear to be more than one level. So Tom's like, I couldn't stop thinking about the game. I hate you. Cam says, I know, me too, breathless. They're now standing right in front of each other. And there's this most wonderful moment, this most excellent choice in how this was scripted, I assume, where he goes to kiss her, but false starts and decides against it. Like he moves towards her and then like as quickly just decides not to. And it's a false start is my best way of explaining it. And she was expecting to get the kiss, and then she just sort of falls over onto the hot tub. And it's weird. And it's awkward, but it also makes them laugh. And so when she sort of stands up and rights herself again, they just go in to kiss each other at the same time. And then they make out. Like it's a kiss, and then they're just full on making out. And oh my God, I'm so invested in these two. I remember the first time watching these last episode and this one and thinking, I would really like for Cam and Tom to be together. I think Tom is a much healthier relationship choice for her. I felt extremely wary that Joe seems to be like getting reinserted in some way back into her life. And she doesn't want that or even know it's happening. And so to see this developing here is something that I really wanted for her. And going back to last episode and this one and doing these deep dives made me feel 1,000 times more invested at this point in the story. Boy, did this hold up. Not just hold up, like, I just like the details. I like these two. We'll see what happens with them. Okay, so we're now going to go to one more scene where we've got Gordon in the Clark master bedroom. He's talking to Donna through the bathroom door. She's in the bathroom. Gordon's like, Donna, how much longer are you going to be in there? She says, I don't know. Guess she's been in there a while. Gordon says, maybe you should go see a doctor. And this particular line plays on multiple levels. So he's looking into a mirror and he scratches his beard. Remember, he just took a really hard fall in that mainframe room. And he says, maybe you should go see a doctor just to rule out anything serious. And he's saying it to her, but he's looking at himself in a mirror. Which makes me just as worried as I was last scene when Joe was worried. Donna says, no, I must have gotten what Joni had. So Gordon's going to sit in a chair in front of the door. He says, I've got some great news that'll make you feel better. You know that consulting gig I did last night? I convinced my contact over there to lease their network to Mutiny for $3 an hour. Nobody is getting that kind of deal. You can run thousands of community rooms. How's that for turning lemons into lemonade? And Donna's not totally paying attention because we're going to see a close-up of Donna in the bathroom. It's just like her eye and her nose. It's that close-up. Her eyes, she's looking down. She's a little clammy. Donna's like, yeah, I'm sorry. That's amazing news. Gordon's like, are you throwing up? She's like, yeah. She looks down. She says, can you give me a sec? Gordon says, sure, yeah, I'll be in the kitchen. But he goes up to the door and listens. Donna, we pull the camera back. Donna is sitting on the edge of the tub. And in like sort of the foreground of the frame, there's an open box of an early result pregnancy test. She's holding up. We can see almost all of Donna now. She's holding the pregnancy test. And I assumed it's telling her she's pregnant and the camera's kind of tilted. That would explain why Donna's not been feeling well for the entire episode and that she's been sort of reckoning with that. So, and it would also explain why when Gordon made the "it's your baby" comment earlier, that landed a little bit differently for Donna. So that's this episode. I loved it so much. I love every episode, but goodness, look at this smile. I can't stop myself. All right, the music for this episode. Things Can Only Get Better by Howard Jones, 1985. You're on YouTube already. Go watch the music video, please. This is where Mutiny is celebrating and Cam and Tom are private chatting. Then we've got Don't Want to Lose by X Hex. This is actually from 2014, and this is the song that was playing during the Nerf Dart battle for Mutiny. And then the last one, One in a Million by Luxury. This is a 1979 song. You can barely hear. It's playing on the radio when Gordon is getting the girls ready for school. Okay, favorite quotes. I've got a bunch of them. So I'll give you 3 honorable mentions and then a favorite. First of all, this one is a poignant one from Joe. No one machine can be everything to every customer. That feels true. I feel you could sub a lot of different words in there, and that can be used in multiple contexts. Cam says, well, I guess we could send Lev out. He kind of passes for normal. That's the Mutiny team. Okay, Buzz says, if you just gave your girlfriend the clap, you think sending out mailers is going to fix that? I strongly considered making that my quote for the episode. Then I'd have to post that on Instagram too. Okay. What I chose instead is a Tom quote as my favorite quote of the episode. So Tom says, "I'm doing a take on class photos from high school. Without you two, it looks like the Abstinence Club of 1985. Nice. Okay. Let's do some feedback, shall we? Now, we've heard from Patrick Squires again. Hello, Patrick. Normally, I don't pull feedback from the interviews that I do, but Patrick was really a fan of the interview with Juan Campanella, and Juan did such a good interview. Patrick, just to paraphrase, said a lot of really lovely things about how humble Juan was throughout the interview and how much he credited the team, and that really struck me as well. For somebody who had so much of an impact on the show, he was extremely humble. But I wanted to pull in this whole bit that feels a little bit broader, because I talked with Juan quite a bit about having to make some stylistic decisions about what do you do to hook in both an audience of people who have a tech background and those who don't. And Juan talked about that a bit. So Patrick wanted to share some thoughts with that. He says, "I love that the challenges in the show are real, critical, technical milestones the team is breaking through. There is some artistic leeway to many scenes and statements, but they're not far off as found in name any other show. This show could have done with way less actual technical coverage, detail, realism, but they did it with the real elements and facts, and it was better for it. And it was in the story, the scenes, the plots, the season. So many movies and shows, if there is a science or technical fact at all, it's just a single small scene or a cutaway animation made later." Thank you so much for that, Patrick. It certainly sounds like you have a lot more technical background than I have, and the show needs to speak to both of us, and it does. And what I'm getting from Patrick is that it feels like it wasn't just a word in the script here and there, but that it was fully baked into the show, and that made this a space that was easier to live in for Patrick. Now, I've got a really fun fact about 109 Uphelia from Calculator Click, which is a really fun username, by the way. So Calculator Click has some calculator facts to share with us. They say Joe has a Texas Instruments TI Business Analyst 1 calculator in his briefcase, which you can see when he puts his Comdex speech notes away after he is finished. Texas Instruments was Hunt's former employer, who also made the TI-99 computer, which Donna previously advised Texas Instruments management to drop from their product line, as there was no quick fix to all its issues. And that was from season 1, episode 7. This part of the series is similar to what actually happened when the TI-99 did not sell well, and one of the complaints was it used an inferior keyboard to other PCs. The keyboard was like a calculator keyboard, which was what TI was already making. What a cool fact. Not on my radar at all. Thank you so much for contributing that. I don't know if you also share non-calculator facts at any point, but come back anytime if you want to share calculator details with us, or anything else for that matter. And now, he is back. You know him, you love him, Evan the Stray. Okay, Evan, of course, is going to share some thoughts about my previous podcast on season 2, episode 3, because first of all, I was asking about Jolt. And Evan says, the Jolt cola malling had my teeth on edge. Since it was a high caffeine drink, I'm wondering if Gordon was really jonesing for the stimulant fix, which is why he acted out like this in his cocaine-less frustration. Jolt could possibly be the first of what we would call now an energy drink. Also, on that episode, Evan says, while watching the episode, I wondered if Tom's anger may have stemmed from his feeling like he was kind of railroaded into accepting the mutiny position after Donna contacted his employer and kind of burned that bridge. That's true, right? She did. it sounded like they weren't happy with his performance before that. He was probably spending a little too much time working on mutiny games. Um, but when Donna called them, that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. And maybe that is something that plays into how Tom was in the last episode. And then Evan also mentions game piracy was a big thing in the 80s. I think we received over 100 titles on floppy disk for a Commodore 64 from a friend. Yeah, there have been a couple commenters who have mentioned this, and it certainly was a prominent thing. And, I guess piracy has been an issue for tech for a long, long time in many different industries. Let's look at season 2, episode 4 comments from Evan. Okay, here we go. Ellis is awfully combative and insulting with Joe. If he really believes Joe has a seat at the table with Jacob, then why behave in such a risky way? It's a good question, right? I mean, Joe makes an assumption that he doesn't know Jacob, that Ellis doesn't know Jacob personally. I don't know if that's a correct assumption or not. But Ellis has certainly been close enough to see Sarah's previous relationship in a fairly privileged situation. So I don't know. I think Ellis has more information here than Joe realizes he does. And that's probably enough for Ellis. Now we're going to get one about Donna. The computer looking out at Donna. Cool shot. Could this represent the user collective also seeking connection, not entirely unlike Joni and Gordon in the opening scene? Yeah, I love that shot. Like Donna is there. It's almost like she's behind the community chat that we're seeing, and she's like trapped within it. It's such a cool idea for how to give us that. Evan says, love Boz's help and wisdom and guidance scene. But really, like Evan, this is the whole episode is Boz's wisdom and guidance, which I love so much. Sometimes we see it in a very direct way. Sometimes we see it more subtly, but it's always, even the more direct stuff is being done with like I know how to talk to Cam kind of a thing. Okay, Evan says, can't be certain, but Gordon's red tracksuit and him panting caused immediate anxiety in me. Maybe it was the camera position and filter. Yeah. And by the end of this episode, if you were to go back by the end of this episode and rewatch the whole episode, and now you know that Gordon has passed out. Because remember back in season 1, where Gordon thought that there was a flower was it the PCB? And he was trying to reach between components to get to this flower that was like in soil, but it wasn't there. And that looked like a dream, but was it somehow connected to the fact that Gordon just took a really hard fall and just went unconscious? And then, you get that physical activity of him running, and it's like, oh my God. So Evan then says the 1970s/1980s Kmart-esque style retail storefront for Orson's is so well selected. I like that. I like your acknowledgement of that branding. It looks like that matches up really well with box stores. Evan says, the Gordon-Joe parking garage meeting. The distinct color behind Joe is green without an obvious reason. The character's color scheme was floated a couple episodes ago, but I attribute the green to Joe here, not Gordon. And does the green represent new growth or money or both? Good questions. I mean, because that whole RGB concept that was in an article that I mentioned in an earlier episode, that is something that we need to unpack, and see if it actually holds up. For sure, in the episode where I brought it up, there was a party. There was a Cardiff party where it was very green and it was very Gordon. But here, Evan's saying it seems more connected to Joe. Okay. Now, Evan also says Things Can Only Get Better by Howard Jones is such an evocative song from the period, mostly positive. Evan also says, LOL, Joe and Gordon's stalemate scene in the bar is pleasing. I love that scene. And I'm so annoyed by them both. Leave the women alone. Oh my goodness. Also, another song, Don't Want to Lose by X Hex, is on the official Halt and Catch Fire soundtrack. That's a fun fact. That makes sense. This is a really prominent scene, and it's one that's come up in a lot of my conversations. Okay, here's one I had to look up from Evan. The Wilhelm scream can be heard when Cameron nerfs the guy with the sombrero, which is Tugboat. I had to look up Wilhelm scream, and it looks like that is in game design. That's a commonly used sound effect for a scream. So that's a really fun detail that you added there, Evan. Tom and Cam articulate what will become the decades-long craze or popularity of first-person shooters. It's fun because we're seeing them invent it. And, surely there were people in the real world who were having that exact conversation. And I really like that it's sort of coupled with this, it's almost like a love scene feeling. So I don't know, it's an interesting scene on a lot of levels. Evan says, Gordon passes out hard. Joe is genuinely concerned. It's proof Joe has a heart. Yeah, because I think in this moment, Joe just said it's only going to be a couple hours before people get back to the office to start their day. And so Joe could be like trying to move things along here, but I really feel like he's like, no, Gordon, you don't look okay. He's prepared to, it seems like he's prepared to drop everything right now. Okay, so then love Buzz protectively sizing up Tom for Cam. I love that too. We've howdied, but we haven't shook. So good. Evan says something I feel here too. How could a person see Tom and Cameron kiss and then not feel like, man, I love love? I mean, the passionate acceptance and affirmation shared between two people, absent any obvious overt sexual attraction, feels so pure and joyous. I think it just puts a smile on a person's face, which is why I'm at risk for being a shipper sucker. I think I'm going to skip the next line just in case it's a spoiler for a different show. But I agree. There is something very innocent about these two. And yet I do feel like there's a sexual tension between them. So there's that, but it is innocent. Okay, Evan says, what I'm calling the Altruism Corporation will be providing Mutiny Network usage for $3 an hour. Keeping this a secret can't go well for Gordon or Donna. Could it go well for anybody? I mean, if Gordon wants to get on Cam's good side at all, if Joe wanted to get on Cam's good side, you can't do this without her consent, but also not to have Donna's consent. And then Donna's probably going to have to be the person who would bring this to Cam because neither of those guys are on good terms with her. So in what way does this work out well? I mean, are they going to try to do it all under their nose? How long can they keep that up when Boz starts noticing $3 an hour invoices? I mean, this is just a setup for failure somehow. Evan says, Donna is looking at a pregnancy test. Did she just get a third kid hung on her? Yeah, right? I mean, it really puts it in those terms now that we've actually seen that on screen in this episode. And now Evan says, Quotella Festival in chronological order. And by the way, we've got a lot of quotes in common on this one, so I'm quite pleased about it. Paz says, you just gave your girlfriend the clap. You think sending out mailers is going to fix that? You got to send her flowers, not penicillin. Yeah. It's true. It's a very Boz way to put it. Cameron's written quote, no, Gordon equals the guy who hung two kids on her and now she's trapped. Yeah, that is, you know what? When you meet Donna in season one, this is a way for Cameron to evaluate the Donna we met in season one. We also have a common quote from Tom here. We're doing the group photo for the bite ad. I'm doing a take on class photos from high school, and without you two, it looks like the abstinence club of 1985. It's so great. And the last one from Gordon, maybe you should go see a doctor, just to rule out anything serious. What I love about that quote is that Gordon is saying it looking into a mirror. So he's saying it to Donna, but he means it to himself. And yeah, that's a really important touch that we got there. I imagine that was written into the script, but that layers that line in multiple ways. And there we are, season 2, episode 4. I know I had a lot to say about this one, but I just love the Tom and Cam stuff. I love the Cam and Boz stuff. I don't know what the way in was for Joe in the last episode, but I feel like we're moving towards getting an answer to that question. So much good stuff here. And some really iconic scenes. That mutiny photo, I loved the whole mutiny photo scene, getting the photo, and then the actual photo is this iconic image that we get. So many good things here. And by the way, not going to spoil the future, but the Nerf dart battle, we'll see a scene in a later season that feels like this. So this is a nice sort of thing that'll get called back to at a certain point. So freeze this in your mind just so you have it all there. What a blast it was to talk about this one with all of you. And I'd love to get your thoughts. Remember, if you've got any spoiler-filled comments that you want to put in the comments section, go ahead and do that. Just start with spoiler so that you give people who are new to the show a heads up on it. And next time we're getting get into season 2, episode 5, which I can't wait to do. All right, everybody, go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire. Bye.